Welcome, everyone, to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, The Mystical Power of Sufi Breathwork, Mantras, and Sacred Sounds. The 7-week journey into healing practices for inner peace and resilience. I'm Lisa Bonis, and it's my honor to be hosting this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Pir Shabda Kahn and address questions about his upcoming 7-week course, The Mystical Power of Sufi Breathwork, Mantras, and Sacred Sounds, which begins Tuesday, April 28th. And a little later, I'll explain how you can participate in the course, even if you can't attend the live sessions. We know those times don't work for everybody, but first, I want to introduce our guest. Pir Shabda Kahn has been a disciple of Sufism since 1969, and he's currently the spiritual director of the Sufi Ruhaniyat International. Pir Shabda has appeared in concerts including Visions for a Perfect World at New York's St. John the Divine Cathedral, and has also performed for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for New Music America in Chicago, at Delhi University Music School, and at Shiva Ratri Festival in New Delhi. He's one of a handful of Americans who's dedicated himself to carrying on the legacy of North Indian classical vocal music. As Pir of the Sufi Ruhaniyat International, Pir Shabda directs the Ruhaniyat Leaders Circle and the SRI Board of Trustees, and is the spiritual director for the Dances of Universal Peace worldwide. And in just a few minutes, we're going to open up for your questions. But first, I want to welcome Pir Shabda, who's going to begin our time together by leading us in a song. Welcome, Pir Shabda. It's so nice to be with you today.
Greetings and salutations, friends around the world. I feel so privileged to have this opportunity to share with you, and deep gratitude to Shift Network that creates this extraordinary vehicle for us to meet together, especially during this very difficult time for humanity. Naturally, extraordinary relief for our planet, for the plants and the air, the animals. But very, very precarious for humanity. And naturally, whatever we're going to do will be with aspirations and prayers for your good health and for all the human beings on this planet Earth, and naturally all beings. Whenever we would meet in person, which would have a lot of hand-holding and circle and so on, we would sing and dance together. And so it'd be natural for us to start with a song. And this is a piece that is based on the words of the Saint Kabir from Mother India. Saint Kabir, a universal being who the Hindus claimed as their Hindu master, and the Muslims said he was a Muslim master. And so this song takes the name of God in both Arabic, which would be natural for the Muslim community, and in Sanskrit. So Allah and Ram in Sanskrit. And then it has a line in it from his poetry, "The fish in the water's not thirsty," which is another way to say is that we live and move and have our being in that all-pervading essence, which is what we're searching for, which is our true nature. So here's the song for you, and naturally I want you to sing along and sing loud. Fill your cup, drink it up, Ya Allah, Allah. Fill your cup, drink it up, Ya Allah, Allah. That repeats. Fill your cup, drink it up, Ya Allah, Allah. Fill your cup, drink it up, Ya Allah, Allah. Ram, 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 Ram. The fish in the water's not thirsty. Ram, 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 Ram. The fish in the water's not thirsty. Here we go. Fill your cup, drink it up, Ya Allah, Allah. Fill your cup, drink it up, Ya Allah, Allah. water's not thirsty. Ram, 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 Ram. Ram, 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 Ram. The fish in the water's not thirsty. Amen.
All right, yay! Thank you for starting us out with such a cheerful and uplifting song. I really love that. Thank you. So we have the rest of our time together to dive into our viewers' questions for Pir Shabda as we prepare for his upcoming course. Again, that's called The Mystical Power of Sufi Breathwork, Mantras, and Sacred Sounds, and it begins Tuesday, April 28th. If you want to check out the website and learn more about the course, it is at sufibreathandsound.com, and that's where you'll see the full description. You can check that out while we chat. So let's go ahead and get started with some questions. If you have a question for Pir Shabda, go ahead and type it in. I'll be happy to read them aloud. And in the meantime, I've already got a few questions lined up, so let's go ahead and start with those. I like this question from Sharon. I think this is a really good foundational, let's get it started kind of question. Sharon wants to know, what is sacred sound and how does it calm the nervous system and help immunity?
Yeah, thank you, Shira. It's a beautiful question. And, I'd rather even start with a broader question as what is sacred? And, if I were to ask us all, where is the altar of the divine? I think we'd say, we'd have two answers. One, we'd say in our heart, which would be perfectly correct. But the other, we would say everywhere. Everywhere as we look is that beauty of God. But for that to arise, you need to have the eyes to see that God in all things, and not only in all things, but the source of all things. Or the divine, or the all-pervading reality, whichever language we want. So then, the way the human being is made up, if we studied the structure of reality, we'd see it was made out of music, and that music is a tuning device for the human being and for the human spirit. There's no doubt that music is a universal language and always uplifting, especially if it's uplifting music, I should say. But now there's been a gift to humanity called what we would call mantra yoga, or in Sufi language, zikr and wazifa, and that is that sound has effect apart from meaning. And so the masters of old studied the nature of sound, and that turned into what we call mantra. And so when those sacred phrases are repeated, even though we've assigned them a meaning, before the meaning takes hold, the vibrations themselves alter our consciousness, or raise the pitch of our feelings, or give us a clearer, a more empty view, where we're not feeling so selfish, but more selfless, and we hear and feel and see, and our experience of life is so much more deep. So that's the way I would express what is sacred sound. And I can only say from experience, having used it for these 50 years, that it's transformative, and it's a wonderful gift, and it's a daily companion, and it can be recited out loud. It can be carried on in the thoughts as a tuning device. So it's literally a tuning device too, another way to see it. So I hope that gives us a good start.
Okay, thank you for that. So then let's go ahead into the second part of the question. How does it calm the nervous system and help immunity?
Yeah. So if we were to study the physiology of the body, the key to health is rhythm, and the key to rhythm is the breath. And breath is the most central thing in our lives. And when the breath is in rhythm, when there's a beautiful balance between inhalation and exhalation, health is there. But when we get out of rhythm, all disease begins. And if you looked at what we would simply, in a simplistic way, call disturbing emotions, anger, jealousy, fear, low self-loathing, and so on and so forth, jealousy, all of those interrupt the flow of breath. But, they're all things we've learned since our childhood, and we have to undo, deconstruct our habitual patterns. And so when we sing, when we make sacred sound, it's a tuning device, again, that calms the nervous system. And when the nervous system is calm, our immunity goes up. Fear is probably one of the worst things for your immunity. Certainly we should use discriminating wisdom to understand what it is that could be threatening our well-being. But fear freezes the system, it freezes the breath. And so when we use sacred sound, it softens everything and builds up our immunity and brings balance back to the body and to the mind and to the heart. We shouldn't be naive that if we've created an issue over 30 years, that, say a few mantras and it'll dissipate. But we can feel that if we make this part of our everyday life, then our life will improve. And I feel as living proof of that.
Okay, thank you. Let's dive just a little bit deeper into definitions here. We've got a question here from Namrata who says, how do you bring out sacred sounds? And I believe what the question means is, what's the difference between just the sounds we're making right now and actual sacred sounds that you're pulling up from inside of yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it somehow poses the question: where does intention and devotion come into things? And there is a saying: mysticism without devotion is like uncooked food, and that saying is before the raw food movement. But a tool is a tool, and it can be used many different ways. And if I were to give a difficult example, I would say that the most important tool that human beings have as a physical tool would be a knife. Without a knife, our life would be very difficult. Cooking would be difficult, chopping food, so on. But knife is also a murder weapon. So that means that tool has so many different uses. And so how we use something becomes important. And so our intent, our wish, our devotion, our wish to be beneficial, to manifest compassion, to be like the sun, to bring warmth where we go in the way that the sun brings warmth, and so on and so forth. So I think it's very important to marry intention with practice.
Okay, thank you. Now, you were talking with Stephen Dinan in your previous conversation about how the lungs of the planet have been damaged, and now it's sort of time for us to take a step back and work on, use breath work to help not just improve our own lungs' health, but also the health of the planet. But people are asking specifically about their own lungs. How can Sufi breathwork help heal the lungs, like specifically with emphysema or other problems with the lungs?
Yeah. I was thinking of the words of Master Jesus, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. Not the translation isn't good, but in any case, seek first the kingdom of heaven and everything else will come. And so the central aspiration in all spiritual practice is to completely awaken for the benefit of all sentient beings in all realms, because you become a radiant sun of blessing and compassion. So, and who you are is essence, which doesn't even depend on a physical body. Essence of you, essence of me, essence of everything the same. So to find gradually who am I, that essence, and live from the essence, then the condition of the body, which is coming and going, is secondary. But then I should say without question that if you can touch that inner part, gradually get it deeper and deeper, it will be the very best thing you can do for everything, for heart, for mind, for body. And so naturally, if you get your breath rhythmic, it will help with emphysema. If you get your breath in rhythm, it will help. All of these things are aids, but then everything has a root cause too, and those sometimes might be very difficult to find. So we're going to have to do our best. And, there's a saying, forgiveness is giving up the hope for a better past. So what we have to deal with, that's what's in front of us. And then there's another phrase which I like using is, this is how it is right now. So whatever's arising, I want to meet it and be with it, and then use my intuition and my strength to make my best guess on how I can improve the situation. So clearly, if emphysema is an issue of the lungs, then if I start to work on developing awareness of the breath, I will help it. If I learn to expand the width of the breath, the depth of the breath, and these are all gradual things, because disease of the body is strong, and it takes a lot of tolerance to be able to deal with it, and oftentimes progress is gradual. And then we have in the outer world an amazing amount of pharmacopoeia of allopathic drugs, which are extraordinary in what they do, but then oftentimes they have a bill for another part of your body, and so it's a gradual process. But without question, if you're going to learn to breathe better, it's going to help emphysema.
All right, thank you. Well, here's a question from Jonathan, who wants to know, what personal challenges have you overcome and learned from that give you the depth and clarity we hear and feel from you now? And how can we overcome real life challenges?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. And, I've had quite a few of them. It would almost be like bragging to tell about them. But, I've been doing practice for 50 years, and I feel and felt the quality of my life gradually improving as I have. And I feel like the capacity I've had to deal with the burdens of this life are a proof that the path works. And so I can say a few things. 2008, my wife and I've been married 44 years, but at that time we donated our life savings to the swindler Bernard Madoff. So that was fascinating. Okay. And now I have all this money. Now I have no money. That feeling, and somehow, because of the spiritual path, it's able to go, okay, this is how it is right now, and my happiness doesn't depend on it. Yes, my circumstances have changed, and I adjusted. So there was very little, the grieving process was quite short. 2011, colon cancer. I had colon cancer. I donated 9 inches of my colon. I'm fine, and no sign of it anymore. So now it's 9 years later. 5 years is supposed to be the magic number if you're clear of it. So So went through that and showed me that I didn't have any fear of death or ready to just face whatever arises with equanimity, which is the core of a spiritual path. To do your best to change situations that you can change and to meet what's arising with joy or equanimity or balance. And then a year later, 2012, my younger son was a very famous DJ, was traveling in Thailand with his fiance, and they were hit by a truck and he died. So lost one of my sons and again adjusted. This is how it is right now. From my inner side and from my understanding that he was on his journey, he's doing fine. I would no longer have him as a son in that way. I remember when he took birth, I whispered in his ear, "Welcome to planet Earth, and for right now, I've been assigned to be your father. You've been assigned to be my son, and let's do a good job." And as I learned of his death, that I was reminded of that, and then we moved into this new reality. So I still feel a great privilege to be alive and to be able to share this beautiful teachings that have been entrusted to me, and to enjoy life and enjoy nature. And so those are just a few examples how the spiritual path has helped me deal with life.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. In fact, it brings up a question here. This is an anonymous question. How does the Sufi breathwork help with processing grief?
Yeah. So grief, it's very complex, but to make it simple, to make grief simple, the process of grief is learning to accept what's already happened. Like I said, forgiveness is giving up the hope for a better past. So grief is the process of adjusting to what's been lost, or what we've experienced as loss. And from a universal place, everything is perfect. From our temporary identification, it's not so. And today I feel good, tomorrow I don't feel good, and so on. And losing loved ones, losing capacity as you get old. I mean, I'm in my early 70s now. I can't run anymore. My knees hurt. I've had to grieve that. I have to say, okay, this is how it is right now. And so my counsel is to use that mantra, to memorize this line. This is how it is right now. And turn and face if you want to call it the demon, face the demon and make friends with the demon. Once you've made friends with it, then you're in a different, it's not the enemy anymore. The loss isn't an enemy. It's what happened. And you learn to adjust. And I felt this way before I had all those losses, and someone would say, "Oh, well, you don't know what it's like to lose this." But so now I can say, I know what it's like to lose all your money. I know what it's like to lose my health, and I know what it's like to lose a family member that out of sequence. And in every case, this lesson was extraordinary. So I think, and I don't have to call it Sufi, it's pure mysticism, it's pure wisdom. Make friends with what's arising. Make friends with the enemy, whichever metaphor you want to use. This is how it is right now. Please practice that mantra, memorize it. This is how it is right now. This is how it is right now. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Now, this is actually bringing in questions. There's a question here. Does this mean that we don't feel emotions like sadness? Another person is asking, what's the Sufi approach to dealing with depression and anxiety? So how, it sounds like you've maintained a level of peace.
Oh, yeah. By no means is this intended to be a spiritual bypass, or that's an expression. I don't know if it lands with you. It's not meant to be a bypass at all. We need to be with what's arising. If you're in the room with me and you're crying, I'm not going to say to you, "Oh, get over it. Don't cry." I'm going to be with you. In fact, I might say to you, "Let the river flow." But at the same time, I would imagine that all beings wish to be happy, and their birthright is happiness. And so it's a fine line between developing, on the one hand, you have to develop strength and resilience. And we go to in the physical world, we go to the gym for that. In the spiritual world, we do practice to develop strength and resilience, because that gives us the power that when difficult things arise, we can be with them wholeheartedly and transform them, not bypass them or deny them. But naturally, some things are more difficult and some things have a longer last. And so in that sense, it is very important to be able to process things, but you also have to use your wisdom, because it may be that if you process too much, you start to drown. And so if you're an alchemist, then okay, let me set this aside for the moment. Let me get my resilience back. Let me go for a walk. Let me do some exercise. Let me get some fresh air, smell a flower, go see the birds, and then come back to things, because so many of us have been so badly mistreated in this life, and our impressions as a child of being abandoned or abused, those are deep-seated wounds that, it may not be that easy to cast off. And if I was able to cast off the difficulties I had with ease, I would say it's because I've had a whole life dedicated, at least this life, but I imagine life after life, to spiritual practice, which has given me the resilience to cast things off easily, not bypass. So I want to really be clear that I'm not encouraging anyone to bypass something, a spiritual bypass, to be with what's arising, to make friends with what's arising. But the delicate point is when the demon comes, the demon of your difficulty, you face it, you make friends with it, and you invite it into your practice. Come meditate with me so we can solve this issue, rather than going drowning into the problem. So it's a very good question. It's a very subtle thing that we get more and more skillful means in our life. Certainly, there'll be a time where we lean into bypass, and then we know we have to go deeper into the issue because we're not really looking at it. And then there'll be a time where we're overly just delving in the issue, and we need a relief and some fresh air. So to find the alchemy of the right way to deal with things.
Okay, thank you for that. And for those of you who are just joining us, we're here with Shabda Kahn, learning about his upcoming course, The Mystical Power of Sufi Breathwork, Mantras, and Sacred Sounds, which begins Tuesday, April 28th. And you can log on to sufibreathandsound.com for all the details and to register. So let's go ahead and get back into questions here. As you were talking, we began getting questions from people who are asking about current circumstances. Like, for example, Nurali asks, what is your advice for people going through challenges in their personal relationships during the quarantine?
Oh, yeah, so sorry. Everything somehow is heightened by this change of circumstance. And, the spiritual advice for anyone, anytime, is to develop rhythm in your life. And we're in a period where everyone's rhythm has been upset. And so many different circumstances. So if I look at my circumstance, I live in my own home. I've got a a backyard that has birds coming. I've got enough food. I'm here with my wife. I have company. So, but now you're quarantined with someone who you don't want to be with, that you're fighting with. There's 100, or you've got my niece has 6 children. How do you train 6 children and keep them up to date with school? But I know Nora Lee was asking about relationship, and whatever arises, we want to get something out of it. And heartbreak is such a difficult time in life. So we do our best to feel it, like the person's earlier question. How do we deal with grief, or how do we deal with difficulties? So we have to go into them. We have to feel the pain. What is it that we're missing? That when you look carefully, what is that Bob Dylan song? I could make it without you if I just didn't feel so all alone. Everything we're feeling, it's happening inside of us. We think it's object-driven, but it's our feelings. If you have freedom, if you're living in limitless freedom, then circumstance no longer touches you. And that means that is the goal of this life, is freedom, pure happiness, not based on circumstance. So when difficult circumstances arise, we want to take them as our teacher. Okay, what is this teaching me? What's arising for me? What am I asking this other person to fulfill? And these are all, I've got to say, if I go back to the question, these are all easy words. And when you fall in love with someone, it's so intoxicating. You don't need to eat, you don't need to sleep. You're just, and then when someone falls out of love with you and breaks your heart, it's tough. What can I say? Do your best. Keep doing your best. Meet what's arising with equanimity. Practice the mantra. This is how it is right now, because you have to grieve the loss of something you had hoped for. So it's pretty much all the same teaching. And then the coronavirus is an amazing teacher. And fear. The word fear stops our breath, and so it's not going to help our immune system at all. So we want to use critical thinking or discriminating wisdom, whichever way we want to say it, and how to behave, what's wise, and on the other hand, keep a buoyant attitude. And the real buoyant attitude has to come from someone who recognizes that life lives and death dies. And so whatever's going to arise will arise, but here I am will always be the case. But that's a really long view. So there's 1,000 circumstances that this virus has brought up, loss of family members, loss of health, loss of job, or being overworked, fear of working as a nurse and a doctor, of now you have a family to go to. How do you keep them away from what it is you're carrying? I mean, it's an enormous change for the earth, and then what a respite it is for the planet. It's extraordinary when you see pictures. I led a pilgrimage to India, to Delhi in February, and if I could show you now the pictures before and after the smog in Delhi, which is the numbers were like 150, 160, things anybody shouldn't live in that area, and now the air is perfectly clean. People are saying they can see the Himalayas. The waters are cleaning themselves. The animals are coming out. So the bird species we haven't seen for a while are coming out. So it is a great respite for the planet, which should give us a warm feeling as we have to learn how to navigate these new circumstances.
Right. Now, here's another facet of this whole situation while we're on the topic. I know a lot of people who are staying home. We're not talking about people who are out there on the front lines, but the people who have been told to shelter in place, a lot of people had these grand ideas of, I'm going to learn French. I'm going to clean out all of my closets. I'm going to accomplish all of these things. But that's not the case for many people. Here's a question from Sarah, who says, what's your recommendation for dealing with feeling unmotivated to get things done and be productive these days when we're all at home?
Yeah, great question, Sarah. And, how do we get motivated? How do we cut through our dull, our morass? And, physically, my advice, go for a walk. Go for a walk in nature, get your breath moving, change your circumstance, Now, I know that's not possible in some countries, that you're not allowed to do that unless you go to the store. Here in California, which has done a great job in general for sheltering in place, we're allowed to go out and walk in nature. So I've made it, one of the things that I want to do every day is I've been walking 4 miles a day in nature. So even when I wake up feeling dull, after I've done that, now I feel ready to enter into life, and we have it's part of a bigger question. Over our lives, we create a self-image. Let's say I'll try to make it simplistic. Let's say your parents divorced when you were young. So they didn't divorce because of you. They divorced because they couldn't get along. But as a child and as an infant, depending on what developmental stage you were at, you feel not only abandoned, but you feel unworthy because your father wouldn't have left if you were worthy. And so now you've got a wound of having a lack of self-worth. And now life arises. And so now when anybody tries to give you worth, that doesn't meet with your self-image. And so you'll do whatever you can to make sure that person abandons you again. So then you can say, see, I'm an abandonable person. I don't have any value. And so often when we have difficulties in getting motivation to change, it's because our self-image is holding on to something that if we changed, the self-image would have to change. So there are those bigger issues that sit behind it. But in a more simple way, get out, get some blood moving, go for a walk. And then also, sometimes we aim too, I don't want to say we aim too high, that's not fair, because I want you to aim for the highest. But you might be better off saying, okay, so today I want to try to accomplish this, not I want to change the world, or for a week I'm going to try to do this regularly. And then another secret to accomplishment is rhythm, to keep a rhythm. And this is difficult during a pandemic because people have lost their jobs, which gives them rhythm. And I had one student who was, this is about 25 years ago, who was having psychological difficulties, and my advice to them, oddly enough, was get a job. Get rhythm in your life. And that helped them. And they did get a job. But later, they got married, they had children, they became a psychologist, and everything went well for them. But it was the principle of bringing rhythm into your life. Get up at the same time, go to bed at the same time, eat at similar times, accomplish things in a similar way. So those are some of the clues. Oh, one more clue. Concentration. So if we shift the question a little, it's how do I concentrate on something? How do I keep a concentration, or how do I focus on something I want to accomplish? And it's very clear that the secret to concentration is love. If we have a connection with what we want to concentrate on, we'll accomplish it with ease. In a very simplistic way, I'll give an example. If I said to each of us on the call now, right after this call, we're going to meet at my house and I'm going to serve ice cream. Those of you who, physically not possible, but those of you who liked ice cream, you'd be punctual. If I said it was going to be between this minute and between that minute, you'd arrive because you have a relationship with ice cream, and you could be punctual because of it. Your concentration would be good because you love ice cream. Now, if I said the same thing right after this meeting, we're going to meet at my house and we're all going to fold laundry. Now, only those of you who had a relationship with folding laundry would be punctual. The rest of you going, I don't know, I don't want to go, folding laundry, I'm not going to get any ecstasy out of that. So the secret to accomplishing tasks is to create the love relationship, to a living relationship with that which you need to concentrate on, and then you can accomplish it. If it's going to clean my closet, you can make a relationship with that. You just have to have a skillful means, and so on and so forth. So those are some ideas.
All right. So we bury ice cream in the back of the closet.
There you go. Put some ice cream in the closet. That's good. I like that.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Well, looking at the clock here, we have time for a few more questions. But before we take those, I'm going to go ahead and give a few details about the course because people are also asking about that. Once again, the course is called The Mystical Power of Sufi Breathwork, Mantras, and Sacred Sounds. And this is going to be a really powerful 7-week journey with Pure Shabda under his expert guidance, where you'll cultivate daily breath, rhythm, and mantra practices to find your true essence of inner light and access your happiness baseline. And the 7-week course takes place on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, starting Tuesday, April 28th. And as I mentioned earlier, if you can't join us live, that's fine, because you won't miss any of the teachings. You will receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. And also, I'd like to remind everyone that the Shift Network offers a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks until May 12th in this case, to make sure that you absolutely love it. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can connect with one another. Also, everyone who registers receives the Mystical Power of Sufi Breathwork, Mantras, and Sacred Sounds bonus collection. First, you'll receive an audio album of live performance from Pure Shabda entitled Live in Boston. Next, you'll get an audio album from Pure Shabda called River of Guidance, an Evening with Pure Shabda Kahn. And then you'll receive a video dialogue with Pure Shabda hosted by Jim Morningstar entitled Becoming the Breath. And when you register by midnight Pacific on Wednesday, April 22nd, you'll receive this extra gift. That's an audio album of a live performance from Pure Shabda entitled Zikr of the Heart. So before we get back into Q&A, Pure Shabda, what are you most looking forward to sharing in your upcoming course?
Oh, I feel so much gratitude for this opportunity. My life has been traveling around the world, being with people, trying to lighten their burden, find a way to happiness, and more than that, so much, we all want to be of benefit, and so to helping people be the beneficial ray of light that they wish to be. And So it's such a privilege to have that opportunity, and especially during this period where we're sheltering in place, to have these 7 weeks to try to improve my skills at communicating over this digital medium, to give these teachings and to learn how the teachings can be given through the internet, and learning how they can affect your life and creating community, to feel in community with the hundreds of people who will be with us in all the different countries. It's very, very thrilling, and these lessons which I'm sharing with you, I've learned from my teachers, and they've learned from their teachers, and this has been passed on from generation to generation. It's a lineage, and on the one hand, it should meet the medicine for the moment. So the medicine for us today is different than the medicine for someone 100 years ago. And at the same time, there's a perennial wisdom. If I suggested to you that 5,000 years ago the Vedas came out of Mother India, those Vedas still apply today. So there's a combination of perennial wisdom and wisdom of the day, and I'll do my best in this course to weave them together, to share with you the pedagogy that's been passed on to me on things you can do in your everyday life, and the opportunity to be with you heart to heart, and holding hands in virtual space. That's a wonderful opportunity, and I look forward to it, and I feel so grateful for it.
All right. Let's go ahead and get back into questions because we've still got them pouring in here. This is a question from Bonnie, who wants to know, is there such a thing as unshakable inner peace, or is it a constant work in progress?
Yeah, the Shift Network had decided to put that word unshakable, and I had said, oh, no, we can't put that word in there. I can't provide that. Unshakable, that's our goal. So naturally, Bonnie, there's a saying, as you approach the horizon recedes. So I don't think it's wise to look at enlightenment and awakening as in the sense of we've arrived, but we will continue to have our vista get wider, our skills get better. And so I can say I feel like living proof that as I continue to unfold and deconstruct and dedicate my life to spirituality, the peace is becoming more and more unshakable. And so gradual development, I think that's a better way to look at it. And even the word peace, it's such a kind of a confusing word, because we'd have to say active peace, because end of activity is not peace. That's death. So active loving kindness and compassion, maybe that's another way to say it. Develop the capacity for expanding the heart. And we see the great beings, I think of His Holiness Dalai Lama, how, at least for me, how just the sound of his voice, and it comes from such a deep place, and how it touches me. And I see that if you study his everyday life, he spends 3-4 hours every day doing spiritual practice. So even though being at the stage of completion that he's at would be a great goal for me, it's not a goal for him. He wants to go further and keep expanding. That's the way I see it. So I love the question, and thank you for bringing it up. So no, unshakable peace is unattainable. It's approachable.
All right. Thank you for clearing that up. We've got a question here from Marie, who's, again, referring to the conversation you had with Stephen Dinan. She says, you mentioned the importance of desires, but of not getting attached to them. I'd love to hear more on working with our desires to motivate us in the day-to-day without feeling like we need to achieve them.
Yeah, the language, it's so difficult how we use words. And sometimes the word desire has been used as a kind of a lower word, and aspiration as a higher, higher octave of it. But if you imagine life, what is life? And if there's no wish, if we don't have any wish in life, there is no life. So our desires, our aspirations, we have to have those. Naturally, we want to keep improving them. So no doubt that behind everything is the wish for limitless freedom, for happiness, the wish to be happy, the wish to be beneficial. So now, as a kind of a mundane example, I want to be happy, and so I've got a chocolate bar over here. I don't have one, but I could. And now I think, if I have this piece of chocolate, I'll be happy. And then I have it, and not bad. Then wait, I want to have a little more, and I have a little more, and then I want to have some more. And so, not difficult for me to overdo that desire. And somehow it didn't succeed, even though I thought it would, and so we want to keep refining our wishes on the one hand. And then if we think about the spiritual path as a two-sided coin that's paradoxical, on the one hand, we should have, if you want to get to the top of the mountain, that's the most difficult thing of all. And so it needs a great amount of aspiration or desire or wish to have enough focus to get there. But at the same time, if you flip the coin over, we have to develop the skillful means to being with whatever arises. Because if we say, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy when my relationship works. I'll be happy when I have children. I'll be happy when I get married. I'll be happy when I'm rich. Then we're basing our happiness on a circumstance. And it's an inexperienced expectation. It's not going to ever make you happy. As soon as you accomplish that same gnawing feeling of what you're looking for will come back up again. So on the one hand, we should refine our wishes, and on the other hand, we should make friends with what's arising, very much like we spoke earlier, so that we make a wish for something, then whatever arises, we say, this is how it is right now. I want to meet it. I want to embrace it. I want to bring love into the situation. We didn't plan for a pandemic. I didn't wish for a pandemic. That's what's happening now. So now I say, okay, here we are in this. This is how it is right now. How can I bring loving kindness and compassion and service into this moment? Now, I'm used to traveling around the world. I'm on a plane every few weeks. I was in Morocco. I was in India already this year. I was supposed to be in Colombia. I was supposed to go to North Carolina next week, and so on and so forth. So no flights now, probably not for a year. We have an annual summer camp. It's all canceled. So I have to make friends with what's arising, say, this is how it is right now, and see how I can bring the best of my being for loving kindness and compassion and service and joy into what's arising. So desire and surrender, those two together.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Let's squeeze in one last question. We're almost out of time. This is from Jessica, who wants to know, if we make time to do only one thing every day, what do you recommend that it be?
Well, that's a great question. Well, you mean what, if we make time to have one spiritual practice, express your devotion and gratitude for what's arising, enter your breath stream and feel connected to the inner beauty that's there, and relax and make that I surrender to what's arising, and I'll do my best to bring about happiness for all beings and all realms. So the wish to be a benefit and to bring happiness for self and other, and to be surrendered to what's arising. I think if you could make that pledge daily, should be beneficial.
All right. Well, this has been an absolutely lovely conversation. I want to thank our viewers for being with us today and for all of your questions. Once again, the mystical power of Sufi breathwork, mantras, and sacred sounds starts Tuesday, April 28th. And again, you can visit SufiBreathAndSound.com to learn more and to register. So, Pir Shabda, do you have any final words for our viewers before we leave for today?
I just want to send love and support, good feeling. May you have all the strength you need to meet what's arising. May your actions be of great benefit. May you find great joy in what you are given and surrender to what is taken away from you. I love this opportunity. I don't see you by face, but I feel you, and I feel like we're holding hands, and I want to express that my heart is with you and wishes the best for you and your families and for all the humanity today during this very, very difficult time for human beings. And then I'm with the birds and the animals and the trees and the vegetables and the plants and the air and the water, and then beyond that to be with all beings in all realms, all the beings we can't see and don't understand, and want to wish us all that we all can get deeper and deeper, be of more and more benefit, and find more and more profound happiness and freedom. So thank you for this chance to answer questions, one of my favorite things to do, and God bless you. And for some of you, we'll see you week to week starting next week, and no matter, blessings to each and every one of you. Thank you so very much.
All right. Beautifully said. Thank you again, Pir Shabda. It's been just a delight spending a little time with you today. Thank you for being here with us.
Very welcome. Very welcome. Thank you. Blessings to all.
Right. Once again, thank you to everyone who joined us today. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great day, everyone.